Welcome to the journey that will transform the way you relate to time, tasks, and your own potential. Today, we begin with a question that has haunted dreamers, students, professionals, and creatives alike. Why do we delay what we know we should do today until tomorrow, and then feel the weight of our own choices? That question leads us to the heart of procrastination. Let's unravel this together. Procrastination is not laziness. It is not simply a lack of willpower. It is a complex behavior rooted in our psychology, emotions, and environment. At its core, procrastination is the act of delaying or postponing tasks despite knowing the consequences. It's that voice in your head that says, "I'll start tomorrow," or "just one more break won't hurt." But here's the truth. When we procrastinate, we don't avoid the task. We avoid the emotional response the task triggers. That's why it's so sneaky. It hides behind the guise of busyness, distractions, or self-care, while silently eroding your progress and peace of mind. Let's talk about why we do it. Science tells us that procrastination often stems from a mismatch between our tasks and our brain's natural wiring. Our brain loves instant gratification. It craves dopamine, the reward chemical, and when faced with a task that feels overwhelming, unenjoyable, or uncertain, it rebels. Instead of tackling that intimidating project or making that difficult phone call, it tricks us into checking our phone, scrolling through social media, or binge-watching a show. These actions give us a quick dopamine hit, but they come at a cost: guilt, anxiety, and the creeping sense that life is passing us by. Consider this. Procrastination is not just about time management. It's about emotion regulation. Many of us delay because we're afraid. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of not being good enough. It all plays a role. Imagine a writer who avoids submitting their manuscript because they're terrified of rejection, or a student who puts off studying for weeks because they're convinced they'll never grasp the material. The task isn't the enemy, it's the emotions attached to it that hijack our focus. And yet, here's the paradox. Procrastinators are often high achievers. They hold themselves to impossible standards, believing that done is better than perfect only when the deadline has already passed. They tell themselves they're waiting for inspiration or saving their energy for the final push. But what they're really doing is creating a cycle that's hard to break. Every time they hit a task at the last minute, they reinforce the belief that they can only work under pressure. The clock becomes their only motivator, and that's a dangerous dependency. Let me share a story that might sound familiar. A few years ago, I met someone who was juggling a demanding job and a creative passion. They had a dream: writing a book. For years, they talked about it, planned it, even wrote a few chapters. But the rest? Gone were the hours meant for writing, replaced by endless Netflix binges and late-night scrolling. When I asked why, they shrugged and said, "I'll start when I'm ready. When I have more time. When it feels right." Fast forward 6 months. They're still waiting. Their someday became a wall of unfinished potential. The irony? They had all the time in the world. They just didn't recognize it as theirs to claim. This is the trap of procrastination. It convinces us that time is a luxury we don't have, until one day we realize we've squandered it. And the consequences? They ripple outward. Productivity nosedives as deadlines close in. Stress spikes as tasks pile up. Mental health suffers as guilt, and self-criticism take root. You know the feelings. That pit in your stomach before an overdue project. The frustration when you watch others move forward while you stay stuck. The nagging doubt that you're not cut out for the goals you've set. But here's the good news. Understanding is the first step to change. When we recognize that procrastination is not a moral failing, but a symptom of deeper needs, whether for clarity, support, or self-compassion, we begin to take back control. It's not about becoming a type A perfection machine. It's about building awareness and developing strategies to outsmart our brain's resistance. Let's pause for a moment. Reflect. What tasks do you keep delaying? What emotions arise when you think about them? For many, the answer lies in the why behind the procrastination. A task might feel overwhelming because it's too big. It might feel unappealing because it's outside your comfort zone. Or it might feel impossible because you're comparing yourself to others instead of focusing on your own path. Whatever the reason, the key is to name it. Say it out loud. I'm procrastinating because. That simple act of acknowledgement gives you power over the pattern. And remember this, habitual procrastination doesn't define you. It shows up when our systems, environment, or mindset are misaligned. If you've ever felt like you're born to procrastinate, I'm here to tell you that mindset is a myth. Every habit, even the stubborn ones, can be rewired. But we start by refusing to ignore the problem. So, dear friend, this is your invitation. Let's move forward with honesty and courage. Procrastination is not a lifelong sentence. It's a sign that something deeper needs tending. Your needs, your values, your voice. The journey to overcoming it begins the moment you decide to look it in the eye, name it for what it is, and say, enough. I'm ready for more. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the psychology that makes procrastination so alluring. But for now, celebrate this. You've taken the first step. You've acknowledged that understanding procrastination isn't just about avoiding tasks. It's about choosing to live a life that honors your time, your talents, and your dreams. Let's rise to it. Together, there's no limit to what we can achieve. Welcome back, dear friend, to a deeper journey into the heart of your procrastination. Today, we step into the labyrinth of your mind to uncover why you, yes you, often find yourself avoiding action, even when you know better. This chapter isn't just about understanding delay. It's about reclaiming power over the invisible forces that steer you away from your goals. Let's dive in. Picture this. Your brain is a playground of impulses. One corner screams for instant joy, scrolling, binge-watching, or anything that numbs the discomfort of starting a task. Another corner whispers logic, urging you to act for long-term success. But here's the truth. Your brain is wired to prioritize the now. It craves the dopamine hit of short-term relief over the abstract reward of, say, finishing that report or learning a new skill. This is survival biology turned modern trap. When a task feels overwhelming, your brain goes into fight-or-flight mode. Not physically, but emotionally. It's not lazy. It's protecting you from perceived pain. Let me tell you about a client of mine we'll call Alex. Alex dreamed of launching a small business, creating custom art for clients. For months, they stared at blank canvases, paralyzed. What if my work isn't good enough? They'd ask. Sound familiar? Alex's perfectionism wasn't about quality. It was a prison built by fear. Every brushstroke carried the weight of impossible expectations. They'd put off starting because the idea of failure felt easier than the risk of actually trying. This, my friend, is perfectionism's cruel game. It masks itself as self-improvement, but is really a fear-based illusion. Here's what science tells us. Perfectionism thrives in the absence of self-compassion. A study from Harvard showed that people who embraced a progress over perfection mindset saw 40% higher productivity. Why? They stopped waiting for the perfect moment and started creating with imperfection. But it's not just perfectionism. Anxiety plays a starring role too. Imagine standing at the edge of a diving board, heart racing. Now imagine that's how your brain feels when you look at your to-do list. Your amygdala, the alarm bell in your brain, is blaring danger, even if the threat is just a task. This is why you might procrastinate on a big project. Your brain equates starting it with entering the deep end of a pool without knowing how to float. Let's dissect this. Delaying action isn't a habit. It's a symptom. It's the mind's way of saying, this feels too much. Let me distract myself until the anxiety passes. But here's the catch. Distraction becomes its own addiction. You choose the temporary relief of checking your phone because it's less threatening than facing the unknown. Yet, the price you pay? A backlog of guilt, a growing gap between your dreams and your reality. But understanding is power. Consider this breakthrough. Procrastination is never about time. It's always about emotion. A groundbreaking study by Dr. Tim Peichel revealed that 95% of procrastinators know they're doing it, yet can't stop. Why? Because they're chasing emotional regulation. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding the feelings tied to it. Maybe it's fear of criticism, fear of looking unskilled, or fear that success will raise the bar even higher. Let's return to Alex. After weeks of analysis, they had an epiphany. I'm not avoiding art because I hate it. I'm avoiding the vulnerability of showing it to the world. Once they named the fear, it lost its grip. They began with a simple rule: create one small piece a day, no matter how messy. Progress, not perfection. Over time, the anxiety didn't vanish. It dimmed. They learned to work with it, not against it. So here's your challenge. Reframe your mindset. Stop thinking, I must be flawless to be worthy. Start thinking, I am worthy because I choose to grow. Your brain doesn't need more willpower. It needs clarity. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if you start this task? More often than not, the answer is far less catastrophic than you imagine. And remember, every expert was once a beginner. J.K. Rowling's earliest drafts of Harry Potter were chaotic. Michael Jordan famously missed thousands of shots. Progress is built in imperfect, fumbling steps. Let's replace the tyranny of not enough with the power of yet. You're not stuck. You're in a process. In the next chapter, we'll arm you with tangible tools to turn this inner knowledge into action. But for now, take one step back from the pressure. Breathe. Recognize that your mind is doing what it was built to do. Then, gently, courageously, step forward into the task. Because you are not your fear. You are the author of your choices. Until next time, keep moving. You've probably heard that big dreams are the key to success. But what if I told you that some of your biggest dreams are actually holding you back? Let's pause here for a moment. Close your eyes and imagine someone who's overwhelmed, staring at a wall of to-do lists with no progress. That person isn't someone else. That could be you. Why? Because when goals are vague or too grandiloquent, they paralyze action, not inspire it. Today, we're flipping that script. We're diving into the science of setting goals that work for you, not against you. And the secret? The SMART framework. Let me break it down for you. SMART isn't a magic spell. It's a mindset, a blueprint for turning the chaotic I want into the actionable how do I start? Let's start with the S in SMART specific. Imagine you walk into a store and tell the cashier, I'd like some food. They'd respond with, what kind of food? That's the problem with vague goals. I want to get fit, or I want to be better at my job, are like asking for food without specifying a dish. A specific goal is a recipe. For example, I will complete 3 30-minute workouts per week is far clearer and far more achievable than I want to get in shape. Specificity is your first step to eliminating overwhelm. Now the M, measurable. How do you know if you're on track? How do you feel when you can't see progress? Uncertain, right? Measurable goals bring clarity. Think numbers, percentages, dates, anything quantifiable. If your goal is to improve communication skills, ask yourself, what does improvement look like? Maybe it's, I will practice active listening in 2 meetings per week and receive feedback from colleagues. You can track this. You can celebrate small wins. That's the power of measurable. Next, the A, achievable. This is where most people stumble. We set towering, heroic goals and then quit when we can't climb Everest in a day. But achievable doesn't mean easy. It means realistic and rooted in your current reality. Let me tell you a story. I once worked with someone who wanted to launch a side business. They planned to build a full website and land 100 clients in a month. Sounds great, right? But that's not achievable. Instead, we broke it down. Design a website map in 2 days. Write 3 product descriptions this week. When the goal is achievable, the momentum follows. You start, you finish, you grow. Now for the R relevant. Why does this goal matter to you? If your objective doesn't align with your values, priorities, or long-term vision, it's just a distraction. Let's say your dream is to write a book. Great. How do your current goals support that? If you're spending hours each day scrolling social media with the goal of saving more money, ask yourself, does this matter to the person I'm trying to become? If the answer is no, it's time to recalibrate. Relevance is the glue that keeps procrastination at bay. You're not working for others. You're crafting a life that resonates with who you are. Finally, T, time-bound. Deadlines are humanity's greatest invention. They don't judge you, they just exist. And that's the point. A time-bound goal isn't about punishment. It's about creating urgency so you stop waiting for the right moment. For instance, finish my annual report by Friday, May 12th, versus I'll submit my report when I'm ready. Which one inspires action? That's right, the first one. Time-bound goals transform endless possibility into a clear finish line. You'll make trade-offs, you'll adjust, but you'll also achieve. Let me bring this to life with a real example. Imagine you're someone who wants to advance in your career. Your first thought might be, I want to be a manager. But is that smart? Let's apply the framework. Specific, I want to lead a project team. Measurable, I will coordinate a cross-departmental project in the next quarter. Achievable, I'll collaborate with my supervisor to identify a suitable project by next week. Relevant, this aligns with my 5-year goal of holding a leadership role. Time-bound, I will complete this project by August 31st. Do you see how this transforms a shadowy ambition into a roadmap? That's the magic of SMART. And here's the kicker. SMART goals aren't just for big achievements. They're for the everyday wins, too. Maybe your goal isn't world-changing, and that's okay. Maybe it's, I will respond to emails within 2 hours of receiving them. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound? Check. This is how you build a life of consistency, not through grand gestures, but through 1,000 small victories. But let's address the elephant in the room. Why do so many of us still sabotage ourselves with vague objectives? Because we're afraid. Afraid of failing. Afraid of the work. Afraid of success. But SMART gives you a safety net. It's not a shortcut. You've heard that phrase before, haven't you? Shortcuts don't work. Systems work. And SMART is a system. It's your daily reminder that progress is possible. Let's close with this. When you align your goals with your priorities, you send a powerful message to your brain. This matters. And when you apply SMART, you remove the ambiguity that fuels procrastination. You don't just dream, you engineer. You don't just hope, you act. So here's your challenge. Take one goal right now. Maybe it's completing this chapter, or finally organizing your inbox. Make it SMART. Write it down, speak it aloud. And when you do, notice the shift. From uncertainty to clarity. From fear to courage. Because the difference between who you are and who you could be isn't some mystical secret. It's goals. Goals that are smart, that are yours, and that are ready to make history. You've got this. Because now you have the tools. Let's go make it happen. You know, one of the most common fears I hear people express is the dread of staring down a massive project. Whether it's launching a business, writing a book, or even organizing your life, that overwhelming feeling paralyzes us. But here's the truth. Every mountain was once just a pile of dirt. And you, my friend, hold the shovel. Today, we're going to dig into how to turn those colossal challenges into steps so simple, they'll feel impossible to avoid. Let's start with a question. Why do we procrastinate on big tasks? The answer is obvious, isn't it? Because they feel impossible. But what if I told you the secret to conquering them is to make them so easy, you'll question why you ever feared them in the first place? Meet the power of action stacking. Action stacking is your gateway to momentum. It's the art of linking a new action to something you already do effortlessly. For example, if you've been putting off planning your week, stack it onto your morning coffee routine. Every time you brew your coffee, spend just 5 minutes writing down your top 3 priorities. No more debating, no more overthinking, just a small, non-negotiable step. See, your brain loves habits it can hitch a ride on. By attaching action to habit, you bypass the resistance. But let's get practical. Imagine you're tasked with building a new website for your business. That sounds daunting, doesn't it? Here's where chunking becomes your ally. Take the project and slice it into bite-sized pieces. Let's say you break it down. First, research competitors. Next, draft your content. Then, select a designer. Each of these chunks becomes its own mini victory, not a chapter in an epic struggle. And here's the magic. When you finish one chunk, it gives you the energy and confidence to tackle the next. Let me share a story. A few years ago, I worked with a man named Alex. He dreamed of opening a community garden for years, but kept getting stuck. The thought of securing land, writing proposals, and building infrastructure felt like climbing Everest in a hurricane. One day, he decided to write down every single step he'd need to take. He divided it into tasks as simple as contact 3 local landowners or draft a 50-word mission statement. Suddenly, his dream wasn't a blur of chaos. It was a map. Within 6 months, that garden was open, and Alex told me it felt less like a miracle and more like a checklist. You see, the key isn't to eliminate fear. It's to outsmart it. When you chunk a task, you're not just making it easier. You're making it safe. Each step is so small, the part of your brain that shouts, "You can't," has no room to speak. Let's take another example. Writing a report that's due in a week. Instead of staring at the blank document, say, "Today, I'll pick the top 3 sources I'll use." Done. That's not procrastination. That's strategy. And here's where you need to lean in. Create what I call a step-by-step explosion. Sit down with your project and ask, what is the first physical action I can take right now? And then, what comes next? Repeat this until your project is no longer a storm cloud. It's a to-do list. The more specific you get, the less power procrastination has. Instead of start learning Spanish, write, listen to a 10-minute Spanish podcast tomorrow morning. Specificity is your superpower. Let me challenge you. Think of one task you've been avoiding. Now, break it down into 3 smaller actions. Did you just make it possible? That's the point of this chapter. You're not training to be a superhero. You're training to be strategic. But let's talk about a deeper layer. When we break down tasks, we're not just making work easier. We're rebuilding our relationship with progress. Every time you complete a chunk, you prove to yourself, concretely, physically, that you can achieve your goals. That builds something far more valuable than productivity. It builds self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of everything you want to create. So I want you to imagine this. You're standing at the base of that mountain, the project that's been haunting you. Take a deep breath. Now, look closer. What do you see? A trail. One step in front of the other. That's the path you create when you break things down. You don't need to see the entire journey. Just the next step. Here's your call to action. This week, choose one big task you've been avoiding. Spend 10 minutes today chunking it. Break it into 3 to 5 steps, the smallest possible. Write them down. Now, look at the first one. When are you going to do it? Tomorrow? Today? Right now? You might be thinking, but what if I don't finish all the steps? My friend, the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to begin. Each step you take is a victory over inertia. Each microtask is proof that you are capable of starting. And once you've started, the momentum takes over. The most important thing you can remember is this. Progress compounds. One step today is not just one step. It's the seed of the next step, and the next. And suddenly, what once felt impossible is now a chain of small, unstoppable wins. So go. Break a task down right now. Let your brain see the path. Let your hands touch the first rock. And when you move it, you'll be one step closer to your goals, and one step further from the grip of procrastination. This is how we build a life of action. Not through grand gestures or overnight transformations, but through the brave, relentless work of breaking mountains into pebbles. And if you'll walk with me, step by step, I promise you'll never let another big project scare you again. Welcome back, and welcome to the transformative power of mastering time management. You've come a long way already in your journey to stop procrastinating. Today, we shift our focus to something even more empowering. Reclaiming control of your days, your energy, and your life. You see, time is the one resource none of us can earn back. But here's the good news. We can learn to wield it like a master sculptor, shaping our days into monuments of productivity and purpose. That starts now, in this chapter. Let's begin with a question. Have you ever gotten to the end of the day feeling like you've done nothing, yet you know you had hours to work? If so, you're not alone. That's the magic trick procrastination plays on our minds. It steals hours in plain sight. But today, we're going to crack that trick wide open. We'll explore 2 groundbreaking methods, time blocking and the Pomodoro technique, to turn your day from a chaotic blur into a masterpiece of focus. Picture this. Your calendar is your battleground. Without strategy, you're just wandering through a minefield, hoping not to get blown up by deadlines. Time blocking is your armor. It's the art of dividing your day into scheduled, dedicated blocks for specific tasks. Imagine reserving 9 o'clock to 10:30 a.m. for writing that report, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. for brainstorming, and so on. This isn't just planning. It's declaring to the universe that your time is sacred. Here's where it gets powerful. When we commit to a time block, we train our brain to focus only on the task at hand. Distractions? They're less likely to infiltrate when your mind's laser-focused on a single mission. But time blocking doesn't just work. It transforms people. Take Jordan, a freelance designer I worked with. He used to spend hours scrolling through emails, switching between projects, and somehow always finishing last minute. When he tried time blocking for 1 week, he discovered a shocking truth. He had 2 extra hours daily he never knew he possessed. That's the power of structure. But what if you're working on a task and your mind starts to wander? That's where the Pomodoro technique steps in, a lifeline of focus wrapped in simplicity. Here's how it works. Set a timer for 25 minutes and blast through one task. Then take a 5-minute break. After 4 Pomodoros, reward yourself with a longer rest. This isn't just time management. It's a psychological game changer. Your brain thrives on rhythm. Those 25-minute sprints trick your mind into thinking, this isn't work, it's a challenge. And when that timer rings, it's a signal to rest, guilt-free. Let me tell you about a moment that changed my perspective. Years ago, I had to write a speech for a high-stakes conference. I'd procrastinated for days, and the pressure was suffocating. I tried the Pomodoro technique that morning. For 25 minutes, I ignored the noise of self-doubt and simply wrote. When that first timer went off, I looked down and realized I'd completed an entire section. I couldn't believe it. My mind had shifted from resistance to flow. The Pomodoro became my ally, turning panic into progress. Now let's tackle the dragons that sabotage our time, distractions. Let's face it, our world is designed to pull us off track. Your phone buzzes, a coworker stops by, or you accidentally open a YouTube rabbit hole. But here's the secret. Distractions are not your enemy. Your relationship with them is. You can choose where to focus your attention. Start by auditing your day. What's stealing your power? Is it social media? Is it multitasking? Here's a radical idea. Lock yourself into the most important thing you could be doing right now. If you're working on a project, silence your phone. Yes, even notifications from your favorite apps. Close all browser tabs except the one with your task. Let people around you know you're in a focused zone. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Let's talk priorities. Time management isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. The Eisenhower Matrix is a tool that changes everything. It asks one question. Is this urgent and important? Not urgent but important? Not urgent or important? For example, an email that requires an immediate response equals urgent. Working on a long-term goal. Important, but not always urgent. By sorting tasks this way, you learn to tackle the critical work that shapes your future, not just react to the chaos of the present. You know the best part about mastering time management? It teaches you to trust yourself. When you see your calendar filled with intention, when you finish a Pomodoro and feel the rush of accomplishment, you're building confidence. You're telling yourself, I am disciplined enough to shape my day. That confidence ripples into every area of your life. Let me leave you with this challenge. For the next 7 days, try time blocking and the Pomodoro technique. Start small. Block just one big task each day and use Pomodoros to break it into chunks. And as you do, eliminate one distraction, maybe social media at work or a habit of checking your phone first thing in the morning. You are now holding the keys to your calendar, your energy, and your legacy. This isn't just about being productive. It's about proving to yourself that when you take control of your time, you take control of your life. So take a deep breath, grab your calendar, and remember, the most powerful word in language isn't I can't. It's I choose. Your time is yours to master. Start today. You've likely heard that fear of failure is a silent killer of potential. But here's the thing. This fear isn't a passive thing. It's a live wire, humming beneath your skin, whispering lies like, what if I'm not good enough? Or, if I try and fail, I'll be exposed as a fraud. These thoughts are the reason millions of ideas wither before they bloom. They're why we settle for comfort over courage. And today we're tearing those lies to shreds. Let's start with a truth you might not like. Perfectionism is the ugliest form of self-sabotage. I know you've heard the phrase, never give up, but I'm about to add a twist to it. Never, ever let the idea of being perfect keep you from starting. Perfectionism is not your friend. It's a masquerade of diligence hiding a core fear that if you act before you feel fully prepared, you'll inevitably fall short. This isn't just a hurdle, it's the main door to procrastination. Think about this. A perfectionist will wait until they feel 100% ready to take action. The problem? That day will never come. The universe doesn't hand out ready-to-go starter packs for life. You're in the arena now, and the truth is, you'll never feel fully equipped for anything worth doing. So here's your first charge. Act despite the fear. Let me tell you a story. There was an artist, let's call her Elena, who spent 2 years planning the perfect first painting. She researched techniques, bought high-end tools, and even meditated for clarity. But when she finally stood before her canvas, her hands shook. The first brushstroke felt like a judgment, like the world would see her as a fraud. That day, she left the canvas blank. Again. And again. Until a mentor pulled her aside and said, "Elena, do you think Michelangelo asked the Vatican, 'Can I build the Sistine Chapel on my third try?' No. He started with a mess. So will you." Elena's story mirrors yours, doesn't it? The truth is, no one begins at the top. Your first draft won't be a masterpiece. Your first pitch, first presentation, first product won't be flawless. But here's the secret. The first version doesn't matter. The first act does. Now, here's what you're going to do. Start today with something small but meaningful. Not a vague intention, not a half-baked plan. Action. Let's take 3 concrete steps to rewire your brain away from fear and toward courage. First, challenge your inner critic. When you feel anxiety creep in, ask yourself, is this fear protecting me or paralyzing me? If it's the latter, talk back. Tell your inner critic, I'm allowed to be a work in progress. Growth requires trial, error, and messy experiments, so I'll do the thing. Imperfectly, now. Second, reframe failure as feedback. Think of it this way. Every time you take action and face a setback, you're conducting an experiment. Was the experiment a failure? Or was it a discovery? If your approach didn't work, you've just eliminated one dead-end path. That's not failure, that's progress. Third, embrace the 80-20th rule. Aim for 80% of the goal, not 100%. Why? Because 80% gets you started. A 30% effort can spark momentum. A 50% attempt turns into 80% by week 2. You'll never hit perfection, and honestly, the world doesn't need it. They just need you to show up and try. Now, let's shift gear to mindset. Here's a radical idea. Fear of failure isn't about the outcome. It's about what you think the outcome means. Do you believe that failing once makes you a failure forever? Do you think a mistake defines your worth? That's not truth. It's a story you've built, then believed, and here's the power you hold. You can rewrite that story. Let's try a quick exercise. Take a deep breath. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a diving board. Your body tenses. The fear screams, "This is too high." But you jump. You hit the water hard, not gracefully. Your heart stumbles. Did you drown? No. That splash? That's how progress begins. Now stand on the second board. This time, you dive with less fear, more grace. Repeat it 100 times. The first splash? Just data. The 10th? A lesson. The 100th? Mastery. So I'm going to ask you a question that changes everything. What if failure is not the end of the story, but the beginning of the better one? The entrepreneur who failed 9 times before launching an empire. The student who flunked their first test, then studied smarter until they aced every one after. The artist who burned dozens of canvases before painting a masterpiece. Their journeys weren't linear. They were spirals, looping back, learning, and rising. Here's your challenge. This week, commit to one risk. Not a life-altering leap, a micro risk. Maybe you send that half-written proposal. Maybe you show a colleague your messy draft. Maybe you sign up for a workshop you're terrified of. And when you stumble, when you notice the fear tighten its grip, say to yourself, I'm not failing. I'm becoming. You see, the world is not a test of perfection. It's a workshop of progress. Every setback is a chance to dig deeper. Every fear, a signal that you're stepping into growth. So let me leave you with this. The greatest innovators, leaders, and creators in history didn't succeed because they avoided failure. They succeeded because they refused to let failure avoid them. So take a risk. Make a mistake. Paint over that blank canvas. Speak to the room, voice shaking. Build your project, flaws. And my friend, this is where the magic happens. The alchemy of turning fleeting effort into unshakable strength. Chapter 7 is your blueprint for crafting habits that don't just survive but thrive. Habits that become the bedrock of your success. You've already identified the obstacles, broken down the tasks, and mastered the art of time. Now it's time to build the infrastructure that keeps you moving forward, even when inspiration falters. Let's talk science for a moment. A habit, you see, is a loop, a cue, a routine, and a reward. Your brain is a creature of efficiency. It loves shortcuts. When you link a behavior to a specific trigger and a satisfying payoff, it wires itself for automaticity. This is why people who meditate every morning don't feel like meditating. They just do it. The cue, like the first ray of sunlight, sparks the action, and the reward, calmness, clarity, or even a post-meditation cup of tea, makes the brain want to repeat the cycle. That's your neural real estate, my friend. Own it. But how do you turn this theory into practice? Let me tell you about a man named Alex. 10 years ago, Alex was drowning in his own mind. He'd spend hours analyzing why he procrastinated, agonizing over goals he'd never achieve. Then he met a client who changed his life, a woman who had a simple rule. If you want to write a book, write 100 words every morning, no exceptions. Skeptical, Alex tried it. The first day, he wrote 100 words. The second day, another 100. By 30 days, he'd written 3,000 words. By 2 months, he had a draft. By the end of 6 months, a publishable manuscript. Why did it work? Because Alex didn't focus on finishing the book. He focused on showing up. He built a habit. You see, the most powerful technique in habit formation is habit stacking. It's attaching a new behavior to an existing one. Need to exercise more? After you brush your teeth, do 10 push-ups. Want to learn a language? Play vocabulary flashcards while waiting for your coffee to brew. Stack the unfamiliar onto the familiar, and you turn a mountain into a molehill. Let me ask you this. What's one behavior you already do, without thinking? For most of us, it's waking up. Now imagine linking your goals to that. Let's say your dream is to drink more water. How about this? Every morning, within 5 minutes of opening your eyes, you fill a bottle and take a sip before sitting up. That's habit stacking. You're not just drinking water. You're designing life around triggers you'll never forget. But here's the secret. Your environment isn't your enemy or your ally. It's your canvas. A tidy desk isn't just for looks. A clear morning schedule isn't just for productivity. It's for clarity of thought. When you design your environment for action, you remove the friction of resistance. Need to read more? Place a book open on your nightstand. Want to eat healthily? Keep your favorite fruit in a bowl on the kitchen table. The brain follows the path of least resistance. If the habit is easy, it'll grow. If it's buried under excuses, it'll die. Now, let's talk consistency. I'll never forget a client who was obsessed with climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. For a year, she trained, 6 days a week, rain or shine. When I asked her how she stayed on track, she said, "I don't want to train. I want the view from the top. But I never talk about the summit. I only talk about today's run, today's strength, today's breath." She wasn't chasing a single moment. She was building a daily ritual that made her capable of the impossible. This is the essence of productive habits. They're not grand gestures. They're the quiet, relentless accumulation of small actions. Every time you choose to show up, even when you don't feel like it, you're investing in the person you're becoming. 100 tiny decisions, over weeks, over months, over years. That's how legends are made. And here's what you need to know. The difference between someone who says they're going to change and someone who is changing is this: they don't wait for motivation. That's a trap. Motivation is fickle. But a habit is a contract with yourself. It's waking up, again and again, and doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Let's test that idea. Close your eyes. Imagine your best self, 10 years from now. What have you achieved? Why are you proud? Now, open your eyes. The truth is, that person is built not from flashes of brilliance, but from thousands of small, deliberate choices. The choice to say no to distractions, to say yes to discipline, to build a life that's not about what you can't do, but what you will do. So where do you start? Pick one habit, just one. If your goal is to grow a garden, don't plant an entire orchard on day one. Start with a single seed. Plant it, water it, watch it. Every action you take today is a root reaching into tomorrow. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a consistent show of up. And remember this, a habit is not something you get, it's something you make. It's the act of showing up, day after day, until showing up becomes second nature. You become the sum of your daily behavior. So let's start building. Let's build a life where procrastination isn't even a choice, where action is automatic, where your habits are so strong they become your superpower. The time to act is now. Your future self is waiting. Chapter 8. Identifying and Eliminating Distractions. You've likely felt it, that invisible tug on your attention, the way your mind drifts just as you're about to take action. Distractions don't just steal your time. They rob you of momentum, clarity, and the sense of control you need to crush your goals. But here's the good news. Distractions are not inevitable. They are signals. They are opportunities to reclaim your focus and build unstoppable momentum. Let me show you how. Think about the last time you tried to concentrate on a task. Maybe you opened your laptop to tackle a big project, only to check your phone. One notification led to another, a quick scroll through social media, a mindless game, and suddenly 30 minutes had vanished. This is not about willpower. It's about understanding the systems that pull you off track and outsmarting them. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I met a young entrepreneur who was struggling to finish his thesis while launching a side business. He'd worked for an hour, only to realize he'd spent the next 2 hours replying to emails that weren't urgent. He was exhausted, overwhelmed, and stuck in a cycle of distraction. But then he made a radical decision. He asked himself, what is the one thing I need to do right now that will move my life forward? He didn't look for perfection. He looked for action. And when he focused on that one task, he noticed something fascinating. The distractions didn't disappear, but he did. He stopped giving them power. This is your moment. Right now, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what's the one task I'm avoiding because it's uncomfortable? Chances are that discomfort masquerades as distraction. You might reach for your phone, flip through channels, or tidy your workspace just to avoid facing that task. But these are all avoidance strategies. They're clever lies your brain tells you to stay safe instead of stepping into growth. Let's tackle digital distractions first. Your phone is not your enemy, but it is a tool designed to capture your attention. Every app, every alert, every emoji is a carefully engineered lure. If you're serious about focus, you must become the gatekeeper of your own attention. Here's what I recommend. 1. Audit your apps. Open your phone and look at the apps you use just to waste time. Are there 5 different social platforms? A game you know you shouldn't play? Delete them. Don't hide them. Delete them. Create a second phone specifically for distractions. This might sound extreme, but trust me, if your main phone has no gateway to procrastination, your brain will adjust in a week. 2. Schedule your distractions. Give yourself permission to check messages, scroll, or binge your favorite show, but only during specific times. Set a timer for 25 minutes of work, then reward yourself with 5 minutes of distraction. This is called the Pomodoro technique, and it transforms avoidance into a structured ritual. You're not denying yourself fun, you're giving yourself boundaries. Now let's shift to your physical space. The environment you surround yourself with is a silent communicator. A cluttered workspace whispers, "There's too much going on. How can you possibly focus?" A clean desk says, "This is your kingdom of clarity." Take a moment to walk through your workspace. What do you see? Half-empty coffee cups? A drawer full of useless clutter? A TV that's always on in the background? Your mission is simple. Eliminate everything that doesn't serve your mission right now. Close irrelevant tabs on your computer. Fold the blanket on your chair. Unplug the device you only charge to feel important. Then, create a ritual to signal focus. Light a candle. Adjust your chair. Play instrumental music if it helps you concentrate. Make your space a fortress of productivity. But let me be clear, the greatest distraction of all is your own mind. Thoughts like, "I should be doing something else," or "maybe this isn't the right task," will creep in. This is where mindfulness becomes your greatest ally. I'm not asking you to empty your mind. I'm asking you to notice when it wanders and gently bring it back. Try this. For the next 5 minutes, take a deep breath in for 4 counts, hold for 4, and breathe out for 6. Do this 3 times. That's all. When you feel yourself pulling away from your task, return to your breath. You're not suppressing thoughts. You're anchoring yourself in the present. Over time, this practice builds mental muscle. You'll become less reactive to distractions and more intentional about where you direct your energy. Let me share another secret. Batch your distractions. Instead of multitasking, your brain's version of pretending it's efficient, set aside dedicated blocks of time for specific types of tasks. Maybe Monday mornings are for creative work, afternoons are for emails, Wednesday evenings are for social media. Batched focus creates momentum, while fragmented time creates chaos. And finally, embrace the power of accountability. Tell someone you respect about your goals. Not in a vague way. Not, "I guess I want to do better." Announce to a friend, "Here's what I'm working on, and here's how you can hold me accountable." When your phone buzzes with a distraction, but your accountability partner expects a check-in, you'll choose to follow through. Humans are wired for connection, and that wiring can be your greatest tool for discipline. Let's circle back to that story about the young entrepreneur. By the time he completed his thesis, he'd rewritten his relationship with distraction. He didn't fight it anymore. He anticipated it. He used it as fuel to refine his focus. And when he launched his business, he didn't have to choose between creativity and productivity. He was both. So here's your challenge. For the next 72 hours, become a detective of your distractions. Write down every time you notice yourself pulling away from a task. Is it your phone, your environment, your thoughts? Then, choose one of those distractions to eliminate. Delete an app. Clear your desk. Do the 25-minute Pomodoro Challenge. Small actions compound into monumental results. You are not here to be a victim of your attention. You are here to master it. To build a life where focus is your superpower and distraction is your teacher. When you learn to eliminate the noise, you create space for your greatest work, your best ideas, your deepest creativity, and your most confident self. This is your moment. Take one step forward, and the universe will rise to meet you. You know what they say about accountability. It's the invisible force that turns intention into action. Without it, even the best laid plans can wither like a seedling starved of sunlight. But when you build a robust accountability system, you create a safety net of support, structure, and reinforcement that keeps you grounded when doubt creeps in and lifts you when momentum falters. This chapter is about how to craft that system, your personal army of habits, tools, and relationships designed to hold you upright when the path gets steep. Let's dive in. Imagine this. A climber ascending a mountain isn't just battling altitude and wind. They're tied to a guide, checking their oxygen levels, tracking every step against a map, and reviewing progress at each campsite. That's accountability in action. It's not about punishment or pressure. It's about partnership, clarity, and momentum. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. Let's call her Emily. She once spent years talking about writing a novel. She had the ideas, the passion, even the outline. But every time she sat down to write, the story would stall. Why? Because there was no consequence for not showing up, no mirror to show her where she strayed, no voice cheering her forward. Then she made a shift. She found an accountability partner, started journaling her progress, and scheduled weekly check-ins with herself. Within 6 months, she had a completed manuscript. The difference wasn't motivation, it was systems. Let's start with accountability partners. The most powerful relationships in productivity aren't the ones where someone hands you answers. They're the ones who ask the questions you're afraid to face. Think of your accountability partner as your mirror, your cheerleader, and your reality check, all in one. They're the person who says, hey, where's your 30 minutes of focused work this week? Or, what's one small step you can take today to move forward? Studies show that people who share their goals with others are up to 50% more likely to achieve them. Why? Because vulnerability creates commitment. When you tell someone else what you're going to do, your brain locks in the plan. But here's the secret. The best accountability partners aren't just friends or family members. They're co-accountability partners. Find someone you can check in with and who checks in with you. Set weekly calls, text progress updates, or even join a mastermind group. The key is consistency. Next, let's talk about habit trackers. These aren't mere checklists. They're visual proof that action accumulates into transformation. When you mark a habit completed, whether it's journaling, exercise, or time spent learning, you're creating a physical record of your discipline. I've seen people transform their lives by tracking just one key habit daily for 30 days. The act of crossing something off doesn't just feel good. It tricks your brain into associating effort with reward. Start simple. Use an app, a calendar, or even a notepad. Color code wins. Celebrate streaks. But remember, the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to be persistent. If you miss a day, don't spiral into guilt. Just show up the next day and keep the chain alive. Now let's discuss progress reviews. If you've ever felt like you're spinning your wheels, you're not alone. Without reflection, effort can feel aimless. That's where structured check-ins come in. Schedule a weekly review to ask yourself, what did I accomplish? What held me back? What's one adjustment I can make? Maybe you're spending too much time on low-value tasks. Maybe you're underestimating how long something takes. These reviews are your chance to recalibrate, not to criticize. I've worked with high achievers who schedule 15-minute Friday review rituals over coffee. They write down 3 wins, 2 obstacles, and 1 action for next week. Over time, these moments of reflection build a roadmap only you can create. And here's where it gets even more powerful: feedback loops. Think of your accountability system as a cycle: action, reflection, adjustment, repeat. Every time you check in with a partner, update your tracker, or review your progress, you're closing a feedback loop. These loops prevent complacency and keep energy flowing. Let's return to Emily. After finishing her novel, she didn't stop there. She started a monthly progress review with her accountability partner, sharing wins like completing a draft or hitting a writing goal. Each time she celebrated, her confidence grew. That's the magic of feedback. It turns small actions into evidence of capability. But let's get real for a second. Systems only work if you show up for them. That's where discipline meets imagination. How do you keep your accountability systems alive? Try these tools. 1. The 3-minute check-in. Every morning, answer 3 questions. What's my top priority today? Who's holding me accountable? What will I measure by the end of the day? This quick ritual aligns you with purpose. 2. The 90-second rule. When you feel resistance, commit to just 90 seconds of action. Use that time to document progress, your tracker, your partner, or even a voice note. Momentum builds from showing up, not from waiting for perfect conditions. 3. The accountability audit. Once a month, ask, is my system working? Do I need a different partner, a new tracker, a deeper review? Your accountability tools should evolve with you. Here's the truth. Procrastination thrives in isolation. When you build a system that holds you accountable, you're no longer fighting alone. You're creating a rhythm of action, reflection, and growth that becomes self-sustaining. The next time you're tempted to delay, pause and ask, who's watching me? What's tracking me? What does my future self owe it to me to do today? You're not just building a system, you're building a legacy of consistency. And trust me, when you look back months or years from now, you'll thank yourself for the discipline you cultivated today. So go. Find your partner, grab your tracker, schedule your next review. The world doesn't need another person waiting for the perfect moment. It needs you, showing up, one accountable step at a time. You've come a long way, haven't you? From the moment you open this book, you've embarked on a journey that no one else can walk with you, but they can walk beside you. And that's what we've been doing together, step by step, breaking down the barriers that held you back. Now, as we stand at the threshold of your next great transformation, let's talk about what it truly means to sustain change for the rest of your life. The truth is, defeating procrastination isn't a finish line. It's a mindset. Imagine a world-class athlete preparing for a marathon. They don't train for a single race. They train for the life of it. Their discipline isn't about winning one event. It's about rewiring their body and mind to endure, adapt, and thrive. That's what this is about. It's not just about getting things done today. It's about becoming the kind of person who keeps getting things done, even when the road gets muddy and the motivation fades. Let me tell you a story that will anchor this truth. A few years ago, I met someone, let's call her Alex, who had been held back by chronic procrastination her entire life. She was a writer, bursting with ideas but paralyzed by the fear of judgment. She tried every fix: to-do lists, accountability partners, even hiring a productivity coach. For months, she was unstoppable. But as soon as she stepped off those rigid systems, the old familiar voice crept back in. "You're overthinking. Just take a break." And she relapsed. But here's where her journey gets profound. Instead of giving up, Alex did something radical. She treated each relapse not as a failure, but as feedback. Every time she noticed herself slipping into old habits, she revisited her core strategies, her breathing exercises from Chapter 2, her goal-breaking techniques from Chapter 4, her time-blocking rituals from Chapter 5. She didn't see these tools as temporary crutches. She saw them as lifelong companions. Her progress wasn't a straight line. It zigzagged. Some days, she burned through tasks with fiery focus. Other days, she stumbled but got back up, wiser. This is non-linear progress. This is the key to sustaining change. It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. So how do you make this yours? First, let's anchor your new habits into your identity. Think of your growth not as something external you do, but as something intrinsic you are. You're not just working on time management. You're a master of your time. You're not just trying to overcome fear. You're a bold creator with the courage to act. When you reframe these practices as part of your identity, the urgency to stay consistent shifts from obligation to instinct. Second, build a feedback loop that keeps you agile. Every month, spend 30 minutes, no more, reflecting on what's working and what's not. Is your morning routine still energizing you, or has it become a cage? Do you now have new distractions to tackle, like the constant ping of your phone, or the lure of passive scrolling? Be ruthless. If something in your system no longer serves you, revise it. If a strategy from Chapter 6 helped you overcome fear of failure last year, find a new version of it for this year. Growth is not static. It's dynamic. Third, rewire your relationship with setbacks. The day you hit a wall, you miss a deadline, you cancel a task, you fall into a familiar pattern, is the day your real growth begins. Ask yourself, what is this setback revealing to me? Maybe it's a sign you need an accountability partner again. Maybe it's a signal that your goals are too broad and need slicing into smaller steps. Treat every slip-up as a treasure map, pointing you toward the next evolution of your strategy. And finally, celebrate in ways that outlast the moment. Don't wait for the perfect finish line to reward yourself. Celebrate the imperfect, messy progress. Wrote a draft that was 10% better than yesterday's? Revel in it. Finished a task while battling distraction? Raise a glass to your tenacity. This is how you train your brain that progress is always within reach, even when it doesn't feel linear. Let me leave you with this. Think of your journey as a river. There will be rapids, there will be still pools, and sometimes you'll feel like you're spinning in a whirlpool. But the river never stops moving. It carves through stone not because it's powerful all at once, but because it keeps going, over and over, until the path it wants to take becomes inevitable. That's the kind of force you're building in your life. Not through perfection, not through willpower alone, but through showing up, again and again, with the tools you've gathered here. So when I ask you now, are you ready to sustain this change for the rest of your life? I'm not asking you to promise anything but this, that today you'll water the roots of your new habits, that tomorrow